Welcome to Modern Entrepreneurs. Today we have Rachel Schnorr, Joseph Hogg, Kristen Mims, Carla Johnson, Welcome to Modern Entrepreneur. I'm Landon Ray, and today I have Rick Martinez, who is a veteran, a registered nurse, a writer, and a successful entrepreneur. He brings a wealth of experience and passion for impacting lives. His story begins in the Army, where Rick enlisted from 88 to 90. He earned his BSN degree from the University of the Incarnate Word and became a registered nurse. And after several years in nursing, his entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and in 2001, he bootstrapped his first business. Now he is founder and CEO of Green Seed Cannabis Accelerator, and he looks forward to the day when the cannabis stigma is destroyed, spearheaded by his vision and his mission. Cool, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here, Landon, thank you.
I didn't even get the THC and the healthcare. It's all coming together right now.
It's all falling into place.
It's all falling into place. So tell me about Green Seed Accelerator.
Well, the short and skinny is that, my wife and I, she's right off camera, we built and sold a company, sold it 4 years ago, started at 18, and very privileged and blessed. It gave us the opportunity to venture into other businesses. Mm-hmm. We mentored, advised, angel invested in some, mm-hmm. and a few years ago, cannabis hit our radar, mm-hmm. and having been an entrepreneur and a trainer for entrepreneurs for a while, mm-hmm. We realized that there was a fundamental gap missing, and that's that the industry is so hot, people are jumping in and failing just as fast. So. Mm-hmm. Realizing as an entrepreneur there's a gap there, mm-hmm. how can we help the early stage cannabis entrepreneurs succeed? Mm-hmm. Build a foundation, and that was the genesis of the Green Seed Cannabis Accelerator program for cannabis entrepreneurs.
And what does that program look like?
So tactically, we're actually, as we speak, we're about to relaunch it. Mm-hmm. So it used to be an annual program where we charge annual. So we don't take any equity and there's no seed funding involved. So we're more of a hands-on training course, uh-huh. which is what we're doing actually probably in the next 2 weeks. We're launching it into a 90-day digital dripped out course, mm-hmm. instead of a month-over-month coaching meeting per se. So. Mm-hmm. Yes, a 12-week accelerator program.
Awesome, and you're teaching them, what is it that you would teach somebody in the cannabis space that would be different than what you'd want to teach any beginning entrepreneur?
That's a great question. That's actually why I'm here at Ontrapalooza, mm-hmm. Because the topic I'll be speaking about in about 1 hour, uh-huh. is how traditional marketing is taking root in the cannabis world. And so that's one of the big nuances. Of course, there's legalities and compliance things, and that's not my wheelhouse per se, mm-hmm. but how a cannabis entrepreneur harnesses marketing, for instance, like an Ontraport program, mm-hmm. into not only just growing, but growing explosively, mm-hmm. and do it in a way that keeps them out of trouble. Mm-hmm. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big staying out of trouble. And
yeah.
that could mean literally, I mean, if we're being open and honest,
yeah.
Not going to jail,
yeah.
or getting your accounts shut down or suspended by
mm-hmm.
merchant processors, or
that's super challenging.
It's a challenge. And so, yeah. that's something that's not being trained on or talked about. It's mm-hmm. just like, here, go ye forth and conquer. Mm-hmm. And
with your piles of cash, since you can't open a bank account.
Yeah, and so we're just getting back to basics.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit different than basics. So you're teaching them about marketing, the traditional marketing,
yes,
but also helping them understand the landscape in terms of the unique challenges in their industry from doing something that's really quasi-legal in a lot of places.
For sure.
Yeah, challenging.
Yep. And underneath all that, though, Landon, is if we take it even a step back, it's understanding and grasping the reasons why the entrepreneur wants to get into the cannabis industry. Mm-hmm. It's so opportunistic now that it's easy for anybody to start. Mm-hmm. And there's got to be a compelling reason why. Mm-hmm. And where we begin our program is getting them to express it, either writing it down or truly getting it. It has to become a part of their DNA, of their heart, mm-hmm. because that becomes the core values, the mission, vision, and purpose of the business. Mm-hmm. And that foundation, when it's laid and we start there, which is where we begin, it's unshakable, mm-hmm. unshakable. You could be a grower, processor, extractor, you could have a CBD company, e-commerce, and they have a higher chance of success. Mm-hmm. And I'm very open and honest, and this is why we have succeeded, because without that foundation, your competition will crumble. Mm. With the foundation, you will stand and grow. Mm-hmm. And so we begin there. And the cool stuff like marketing and trickery and sales tactics, that's a part of it. Mm-hmm. But the silver bullets are meaningless without having that deeper set reason why you wanted to start in the cannabis industry.
And it's not just to get rich.
For the person who says, I just want to make money, then they're not my client. They're not our client. We want somebody who has a vision, something compelling that's going to help the greater good. And yeah, money will follow.
Sure.
Money is a byproduct of the mission, vision, purpose, and our values, and a well-executed business. But to get into it for the money, more power to them. But that's not who I want to work with.
Yeah. So as somebody who's, deep into the industry, working with a bunch of entrepreneurs in the space, what do you predict is the future for the cannabis industry? I notice right now that in particular cannabis stocks are just going haywire, and the hype around the industry. I mean, I could be mistaken, but I feel like some of these Canadian stocks are trading at something like 600 times earnings. Like literally unheard of numbers. Even when, as somebody who went through the .com era, this is wild. The hype is insane. It seems obvious that as the laws mature around the space, that much better funded incumbent players, are gonna get into this space and squish out a lot of these little players that are starting up. Like, what do you see in the next 3 years in the space?
The little players will get squished out. They'll be. So one of the mantras that I teach and breathe and preach is build to sell. Whether or not a company wants to actually be acquired or sell, going in with that mindset, it forces you as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of your company, to think differently. You don't think in terms of what's going to be good for us tomorrow, but if you think build to sell, your decision-making process is vastly different.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a small-time operator or a multi-million dollars per week operation. When you build to sell, it changes the entirety of your business landscape. And that being said, is the ones who don't think that way or don't know how they should call me. But if they don't think that way, then they're going to get squished. Their big money is coming in. That's not a bad thing. You hear some people saying, "Oh, here comes big pharma, here comes beverage, here comes counterculture money and
tobacco."
It's coming. It is. So prepare yourself for it. That being said, you mentioned kind of the stock. I'm not a stock guy per se, but I'll tell you, this is my opinion on why it's going nuts. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
This is without a doubt a global phenomenon. There are now 2 countries that have totally legalized marijuana. Canada, and I think it's Uruguay or Paraguay. Total legalization. Like you can now go out in Canada in a few months and buy a joint. Now I don't know how they're gonna do that, but that's a Canadian issue. But it's FOMO, which is why these valuations are insane, which is why somebody who has a great idea around a weed product or cannabis, without even an MVP or a product, they could actually get some sort of crazy funding.
Yeah.
Because people are afraid to miss out.
Yeah.
They don't want to miss out. So knowing you can't explain, in my opinion, with a graph or a chart, or even historically, because historically this was an illegal industry.
Yeah.
This is as real time as it gets. So fear of missing out. So people are saying, here's my money, let me stroke a check.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the guy in 3 years that says, dang it, I should have written that check.
Yeah.
It's happening right now.
You've had, though, a longer career than just the cannabis industry. You had a business that you built for 16 years. What was that business?
We did, simply put, staffing. We put doctors and nurses specifically into military hospitals across the U.S.
Got it. So challenging business, as all of them are. Think back to the beginning of your whole career as an entrepreneur, and if you could give your earlier self a piece of advice that would have made it easier, what would that be?
That's easy for me.
Oh, good.
And I say that because I was asked the same question about 3 years ago at an Inc. 5000 event, and at an Inc. conference, and I looked at the camera and I said, get a mentor. The first thing any entrepreneur should do is find somebody who's been there, done that. Somebody who has cut their chops, been in the dirt, done the things that they want to do. Find a mentor.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mean a coach at that stage, but somebody who you can lean on, because there's no reason, whatever we do in the entrepreneurial world, it's been done before. There's no reason to crash and burn. There's no reason to fail. Of course it'll happen, but find a mentor. Find a mentor who will guide you.
So I've heard that answer before.
Yes.
My next question is always the same, which is people who have been there and done that and successfully tend to be busy people that have a lot of people who would like to pick their brains or take their time. And how do you convince a worthwhile mentor to mentor you?
I think that the word that glowed for me there was convince. I think some people are wired to pay it forward. So a few years ago I may have had a different answer, but through life-changing experiences and through growth as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a spouse, as a believer, as an entrepreneur of counterculture industry, I don't want to have to convince somebody. There are people out there who right now are more than willing to give their time because they were once in those shoes. So I would say to the person who might listen to this is don't convince somebody. Find the people, and they're out there. It's called putting your nose to the grindstone and finding them. It's find the one like myself. If you're a cannabis entrepreneur or an emerging, nascent, early stage cannabis entrepreneur, you should by all means be talking to me because the reason why I do what I do is because nobody was there for me, and my wife and I failed just in ways that entrepreneurs should not have to fail. And we learned and we grew. And I realized later that why wasn't there anybody? And then I realized that it was my fault for not seeking them. So they're out there. And specific to the topic of what we're addressing today, Landon, of cannabis, entrepreneurship, the explosiveness in the industry, if you're looking for somebody, and you're listening to this podcast, you should be on the phone, dialing me, texting me, messaging me, Instagramming me, Facebooking me, whatever, because I'm the guy who will pay it forward. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like your unique skill set is?
What we're doing right now. Right now, promotion. So my gift, my skill is I'm really bad at certain things. And I learned a long time ago that the things that I'm bad at, I'm not gonna be able to read a book and get really good at. I got incrementally better at. The things I was best at. So when we owned our staffing firm, our largest contract we closed was a $100 million contract. That's not normal. That's not a normal, people hear that and they're gonna rewind this part and say, what did he just say? And what I bring to the table is my ability to connect, to look at a human being in the eyes and say, I'm the guy who is going to change the landscape of your business. And the ones who chose to go the other route, they're second place. Nobody remembers second place. The ones who look at me and they'll shake my hand or they'll say, I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what you have. I believe in what you're going to do to the landscape of our company. They are the first place. So my gift has been able to do that, to sit down, to promote, to market, to look at that entrepreneur, that CEO in the eye and say, our company is the one you need to get to your promised land. And as evidenced by the largest contract we closed in the business we sold was a $100 million contract. And that's my gift.
That's real money.
It's real money. It's real money.
So, so how do you learn that? It sounds just like confidence.
A lot of it is. And confidence is the key to being the #1 entrepreneur. So accelerator programs, all the way back. This is not new for us. I've run accelerator programs in traditional industries. Sat down with a group of about 8 of them, early stage entrepreneurs. They were about 300,000 in gross revenue. So early stage, still growing. I asked them, and this was in a closed room, so I'm not divulging any type of secrets. How many of you believe you're the best at what you do? And only about 3 of the 6 raised their hands. And so I looked at the 3 and I said, why would I want to give you my money? If you don't believe it, why should I? And so the confidence begins with you. It's right here. It's with the entrepreneur. It's like if you are going to ask me for money and you don't believe you're the best, that's a problem. So confidence begins with that person, with their mindset, with their belief system, with their mission, vision, core values, the foundation. They missed the foundation, which is why they were in my accelerator program. So I believe it. That's the drum I beat. We've had successes as entrepreneurs. We've had helped others, had the successes that they desire, whatever success means to them. Confidence you don't get from a book. You don't get from a Tony Robbins event. You get from believing in yourself, from looking in the mirror every day and saying, my competition is that person, and then going out and beating them every day. So there you go.
All right.
Confidence.
Awesome. So tell me about this. What are you learning right now? What is your kind of personal cutting edge?
That's a big question. I learn every day. Here's the truth: is I'm speaking in exactly 1 hour. 1 hour, and I sent my slide deck in about a month ago, and I'm really not good at slide decks. I'm really good at sometimes off the cuff. And so here's what I've learned just in the last 72 hours of being in Santa Barbara. My slide decks are not going to be relevant to what I'm going to say. Because I learned, no, here's why, because I learned so much from this incredible people here at this conference about modern day, what they're doing for marketing today, about what their beliefs are around the cannabis industry today. And it doesn't mesh with my slide deck. So I learned a whole lot about the modern marketing, about the entrepreneur, who is serving clients out there and what their take is on the cannabis industry today. And I'm like, wow, that's not in alignment with what I'm going to talk about per se. It's better. So I learn something every day.
Cool.
I learned that your brother is Bloom Farms. And for the record, I'm gotta meet your brother. So don't edit this part out. I want to meet your brother, Bloom Farms. I gotta meet him. I heard of Bloom. Who hasn't heard of Bloom?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. Stoners. Okay. Tell me about this. You've obviously had a success, long-term business, now starting your second major endeavor. Do you think about what you'd like your legacy to be?
Somebody asked the question at a very kind of boots on the ground level just the other day. I think we were at the bar here after the event. And I said, legacy on a very personal level is when my wife and I, when we pass from this earth, the last check that we leave for our kids is going to bounce. So the legacy, and what that means is that we are seizing life for everything it's worth. There's life is it's a day-to-day thing. My wife is literally right there. We're here together. We're doing everything side by side like we always have done. I just hope that we leave the cannabis industry specifically a better place for the ones who are going to follow behind.
So we're calling this thing Modern Entrepreneur. We're trying to figure out what you think is sort of unique about this modern moment. 2018, things are different than they were in 2012 or 2008. What do you think it is that's unique about doing business, starting a business today?
It's easier than ever. It's easier than ever, and more people are getting into it, I believe, because of the potential freedom it provides. And it's also very scary. When we started, so I'm in my I'm 51. There was you couldn't go to college and get a degree in entrepreneurship. Business school was only for the ones who wanted to go into banking or to Wall Street. So it was very different. And maybe because of my age, I remember those days. Now, I think I read an article just 2 days ago that even college enrollments are down because entrepreneurship it's
a real alternative.
It's a real alternative.
Yeah.
And because of where we're at, people aren't necessarily concerned about making seven figures or these massive. They just are more concerned about just living a good life. And entrepreneurship more than ever has become. It's real. It's real. And that being said, it's easier than ever to get into. So that's what shifted a lot. Social media is another big shift, but entrepreneurship, it's real. Doesn't require a college degree.
No, I don't have one.
Yeah, I'm a nurse. So
there you go.
I'm a nurse.
Rick, hey, thank you so much for being
Landon,
here. Great conversation.
Yeah, it was.
Would you sign our wall?
I will.